as you mentioned earlier, Cody, correct. This is Gloomhaven. It's been a while. I guess we haven't talked about Gloomhaven because you hadn't played it until very recently, apparently. So,
well, technically, I've played Jaws of the Lion for like over a year now.
And I think they're very similar games. I mean, I haven't played Jaws of the Lion, and you've played both now, so I'm sure you can speak to that. But from what I know, they're definitely very similar experiences.
Very much so. I mean, Jaws of the Lion is compatible with Gloomhaven, so you can take the characters in Jaws of the Lion and then play them in the main campaign.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll breeze through a description real quick. Basically, this is kind of a Euro-y dungeon crawler in a way. At least thematically, it's a dungeon crawler. So there's a campaign, there's a ton of different scenarios, you have all these map tiles, you set up a map every round, and everyone has their own character and their own deck of cards, multi-use cards, and then every round we're all playing 2 cards at the same time, and then we're using actions on those cards to manipulate your character on the board, to attack enemies, to complete objectives, to pick up coins, to do all sorts of fancy stuff. And basically every scenario, you win if you complete the objective, which a lot of times is just kill all the enemies, but sometimes there's other objectives. Or you lose the scenario if everyone dies or becomes exhausted. So that's basically the very, very short description of Gloomhaven. There's a lot of stuff. It's an enormous box. There's a lot of stuff packed into it. There's a lot of unlockable stuff and a lot of secret hidden mystery stuff that you have to, achieve certain things to unlock and open. There's a ton of characters, but that's the base of it.
Yeah. Well said. Where do you want to go from here?
Just jump right into positives, man. I mean, I got quite a bit to say, so, I'll try being quick about it, but we can just bounce back and forth like normal, and I can start us off. Basically,
let's do it.
The characters, man. Oh my goodness. Now, I know you're only just barely starting to tap into Gloomhaven. Basically, you get 6 starting characters to choose from. And then there's at least 10, maybe 12 more. I don't remember the exact number. Maybe even more than 12. Secret characters. They all have their own mini that's in a little box. They all have their own deck of cards. They all have their own special abilities, rules, all this stuff. And that's all locked away in sealed boxes. And every once in a while, you can unlock a character and you can change characters every once in a while throughout the campaign. It's amazing, all these different characters, and they all play so uniquely. By the way, this is going to be a completely spoiler-free review, because like I said, there's a lot of mystery stuff in the game, so we're not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to spoil anything.
That's good.
But all of the characters play very differently, and that's what's one of the most amazing things about this game, is that you can occasionally change characters and just play the game in such a different way than you were with your previous character.
Yeah, I'm super impressed by the asymmetry and the balancing and just the intricacy that went into Gloomhaven. Like, how much time did Isaac Childress spend on this? And did he have help?
I mean, I'm sure he had a ton of help. He's the one credited as the designer, so like solely him. But I'm sure that there were other people helping with world building and with just all of the different components that go into this game.
Sure,
because it's crazy.
And obviously, this got picked up by looks like Cephalofair Games.
Yeah,
that's what BGG is saying. So I'm sure. Like, I'm curious at what stage this game was when it was picked up by the publisher, and then how much work do they have their team put into it. But anyway,
and then of course you also have Frosthaven that's come out since then, and Gloomhaven 2nd Edition. So
that's right. Yeah. I'm not going to get the 2nd edition. So I just, again, finally got Gloomhaven. Actually, no, I got it a few months ago. We were just spending time finishing Jaws of the Lion. I got Gloomhaven for $84, homie.
Yeah.
84. And it was new. It was some special like lightning deal on one of the smaller board game websites. And I just had a price alert on Board Game Atlas. May it rest in peace. And nabbed it. I'm going to call that my first like of the game, is that I got it for $84.
Officially, you're locking that in. That's your first one, so it's my turn.
Locking it in. How much did you get it for? Isn't it? It retails for like $140 or something, right?
Yeah, I think I got it for $120.
Okay,
but bad. It was me and 2 of my siblings that went all together on it. So, that in a way lowered the price.
That does help, because this is completely a multiplayer game. So helps.
Absolutely. No, it's not. I mean, you can play solo, and I think a lot of people actually do play Gloomhaven solo, but it's also a very good group game as well.
# no friends. Relatable.
Similar to my first point, I just want to say I really love all the unlockable stuff in this game. So that's including the characters, but there's other things too. There's a bunch of like sealed envelopes that come with the game that you lock or that you unlock when certain circumstances happen. All of a sudden you'll read a card or something will happen in the game that'll tell you to open this envelope, and you're like, oh, I don't even know what to expect, you know? So it's really cool stuff. There's ciphers. Like at one point you get like the secret message and you have no idea what to even do with it. You know, there's all that kind of stuff. And I just love it. There's kind of like this big, I don't know, there's kind of like this big almost mystery on top of the whole thing. And it's just, I love all the unlockable stuff.
It's like almost a legacy game. It's still playable after you've completed the whole thing, but there definitely is like surprises that are spoiled, right?
It's actually not really playable.
Yeah,
like
I thought
the
you could do like
game-
randomized campaigns or like randomized plays.
But you can do that, but the campaign can only be played through once, really. Like,
Okay, gotcha.
you're supposed to put stickers on this huge map board, and those are permanent, and you're supposed to like rip up and throw away cards or whatever, you know. So it's possible if you buy reusable stickers and if you don't rip up cards to basically resort and resell the game if you wanted to, or replay the campaign. It's a lot of trouble, but then you're right, there are like randomized scenarios you could keep doing infinitely.
Yeah. I can't rip up cards, dude. Like, it depends.
Me neither, man.
If the game is a dedicated legacy game, like Risk Legacy, I was fine with tearing some stuff up in that one. But Gloomhaven's like, I spent so much money on this, even though it was severely discounted, and I just want to keep it nice. I'm not going to rip up this encounter.
Yeah, that sentiment totally resonates with me. So I hear you.
Sure. All right. I'm going to say this is essentially D&D without the prep work. That is a big plus. Now, sure, it doesn't have the same true experience as D&D. It's not like, I mean, all the interactions happen basically in combat, and then there's some external story elements that you can work within. So obviously D&D is much, much more open world and whatnot. But if you're looking for an RPG experience and nobody wants to be a DM, you just pull out Gloomhaven. It's a little bit of work to run. Obviously, someone has to know all the rules for everything, but you don't have to like beforehand figure out a story of what's going on and flesh out all these characters and do all this balancing and abilities. Like, the game's just already there. It's that's what it's for, and probably what this largely caters to. This might be the bridge, Nate, for the exclusive RPGers to join the hobby board gaming community.
I think it's one of a few. I think there's a few other out there that deliver similar experiences. But what I think is so special about this one is that it's a bridge to a Euro style game, because there's no dice chucking or anything like that in this. The combat is all card based, and everything else in the game is mostly playing cards and doing things, you know? So it's a very Euro-y style kind of dungeon crawler, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, I guess your battle dex is essentially a D20, but it's an upgradable D20.
Yeah, I love that. It's customizable. I love that so much.
Are you saying that's something you like about the game?
It is, but you know, I didn't have it written down, but I will say I do like that quite a bit.
Okay, cool.
But I'll kind of play off your point a little bit. Another thing I love a lot about this is the storytelling and the world building are so good. The world in this is so intricately created. I mean, it's not on a level of Lord of the Rings, you know, it's not there, but there's a lot of effort put into this, and there's a lot of text, there's a lot of story, which is really well done. And then the art is just incredible. I mean, the art is upper tier. It is up there, you know? Like, this is one of the few games that games should ascribe to, I think. And it really helps the world feel a lot more real, and it helps you get engrossed into your character more and just into the plot more, into the storyline and everything that's going on. So it works super well as far as like really engrossing you in the game.
Yeah, I'll kind of hop off of that. I basically have the same point, but it was like one of the first things I wrote down for like was the depth of the game. I love the story that you get to play through. I love how you're not just stuck with your basic abilities, but you continue to level up and you can unlock new things that you can, not just your little like random D20 battle deck, but your character ability cards that you're using to do things. How each of them has a top and bottom ability, so you have to decide which one you want to use in connection with a different card, and then you play your second card and use the opposite of whatever you did. But then as you level up, you have access to, it's like always 2 new options that you can add to your deck and replace a weaker card. That's pretty dope. Besides that, there's the items you can buy. and you only start off with access to like 14 items, but as Gloomhaven's prosperity increases, I think there's like more items that become available. I think there's like random items that become available as you do different like side quests, or just different ways they arise besides just leveling up Gloomhaven. And then all the random encounters. There's like the city encounters and the road encounters. That really helps, I think, add a little bit more story to the main story. Even though it's all randomized, it makes it feel a little bit more like a real RPG, where you're not just in the middle of your main quest. You're like, oh, here's this random thing you have to deal with. You have to make a decision, and then you have to deal with the consequences.
And it's those cards are fun too, because it's kind of it's like an event card basically, but you get to make a decision always. And even sometimes characters that are no longer in the game will revisit. I think always like characters that go out of the game will then be revisited in the game through one of those cards. So yeah, it's a fun little add-on to the game. I like it a lot.
I tell you though, the very first encounter we did, it was a road encounter before starting the first scenario of the official, not Jaws of the Lion, but Gloomhaven. And the choice we made, it ended up, we each lost 3 health to start and that's literally the worst time to get that card, because it's not proportional to your character's level. It's just flat. You lose 3 health at the start of this mission.
Yeah.
And you start off with not very much health at all, like for your first level. So that kind of sucked. But
that really sucks. Big time.
That's randomness for you.
So another thing is the items. Like, I think the item deck is incredible. First of all, it's huge, but then also the actual system works really well. There's a lot of different types of items, head armor, or like helmets, I guess you would say, but then also like armor and footwear and one-handed weapon and two-handed weapons. And there's a whole system for what amount of stuff that you're allowed to have. And then the other kind of extra items. And the system is a little bit complex, but once you figure it out, it's really thematic and really, really well done. It's not like Skyrim where you can just run around with like 30 cheese wheels and 17 swords and all this. It's very strict about what kind of things you're allowed to have and how much. And so I think it works really well.
I mean, in Skyrim's defense, there is a weight system. So, you can't carry infinite cheese wheels.
But practically it doesn't translate at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of everything we've discussed between the two of us has probably already been said. I'll finalize mine with the aesthetic and art. Ish. The ish is for the art. I do agree that the art is very unique. I'm sort of neutral on it. What I like most about it is it really sets a mood so that Gloomhaven has a very novel feel to it. You see the art and you're immediately like, yeah, that's Gloomhaven. Even Jaws of the Lion, like it's all the same aesthetic to it. And side note, there's like a spin-off inspired game called Rove that is in the works, where it's not the makers of Gloomhaven that are working on it. But though it is inspired by Gloomhaven, and they have the same artist who worked on Gloomhaven that's going to be working on it. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't know if there's going to be some copyright problems there, but I just remember seeing like the concept art for the cover of the box, and it's the same exact art style. All that to say, for me, it's a little bit funky. It's like when you look closely at the characters, there's almost like a lack of definition in some ways. Like everybody has glowing eyes. A lot of people just have like weird jagged lines like for their mouths as like teeth. So it's almost like this gritty atmosphere it kind of portrays. So I guess it works for Gloomhaven, but I don't know if I'd really choose that art style in really any other.
I definitely understand that.
Sure. But I do like the overall aesthetic, not just the art, but the graphic design that went into the game is top notch. Even just your ability cards, how depending on which character you're playing as, all of your ability cards are like a different background color. Yeah. And it's not just like a solid matte color. It kind of has this glow effect to it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of the parts of the card that kind of have this almost neon-y kind of glowing effect to them. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, not in like a modern crappy city neon way,
in a magical cool way.
Neon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Lastly, for me, is that also it's the multi-use cards. That system I love. Basically, you have a hand of cards. Well, it starts out as like a pre-game deck builder. You pick which cards you're going to take with you into the scenario. Because you can only have a certain amount of each level, whatever. So you pick which cards you're going to take. And then every round you play 2 cards from your hand, and they both have a top ability and a bottom ability. And you don't have to choose right away which top and which bottom you're going to do. You just pick the 2 cards. And then when it comes around to being your turn, you can decide which top and which bottom to do. I love that. I love the flexibility you can give yourself while still making plans about what you want to do, but not knowing what the other people are going to do or what the enemies are going to do. Absolutely love that system. And the initiative thing is also worked into that too, which is awesome. Yeah. Okay. Let's get on to negatives then. Cody, you want to start?
Let's do it. Yes. First thing I'll say is that it just kind of comes with the game, but there are so many things to remember when you're playing, especially with combat and like monster movement and when effects apply and how those effects apply. Then you've got this little element track that you have to like move up and down at specific points throughout every round. It's like as you get to know it, it's fine. It's just part of the game. But I find myself kind of constantly like, okay, wait, okay, we're both spaced at this distance from this one monster. Okay, so he needs to choose the guy with the higher initiative. Oh no, but he's doing a ranged attack. So, it's just kind of like all these things where it might be a little bit easier if you actually had a DM just to be like, this monster goes here, done.
I think I definitely agree with you. I agree with that sentiment, but I don't want to scare people away because I want people to know that if this is a game you have, if you invest in this game and you buy this game, it's something you're going to want to play regularly anyways because there's so much content available for you. So if you play this game once a week or even once every 2 weeks, after a little while, you'll start to really know the game well enough that things will just be automatic. You won't have to like think about them. You won't have to visit the rule book as much, which to be fair, it's obviously there's an enormous rule book that comes with this, multiple of them. But
yes, big.
It definitely helps in a way to have someone who's kind of the GM, right? Someone has to know the game inside and out and be able to kind of run it so that not everybody needs to know it completely,
Yeah, that's fair. What you got?
Again, it just comes with the territory for a game like this, but the setup is just atrocious. I mean, I would say if you're going to get this game, it's really beneficial to have a table set aside where you can just leave the setup until you're done with it. Because every time I played this, we did not have that. We probably played, I don't know how many, maybe 30 or more scenarios, maybe 35, I don't know. Every single time it was set up and then take down. And that is brutal. I mean, this is like the worst game I've ever owned as far as that goes. It's just, there's so much. Yeah. And you have to have a good system for packing things away and how you store everything. Like we bought little tiny like kind of pencil boxes for all our personal stuff. And we bought like a tackle box basically for sort all the monsters and everything. Like you really got to get creative with it.
And it's not just the standard neutral setup every time. It's every mission you play has a different set of monsters and items and like room things that you have to pull out and assemble. Yeah, it's a beast.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the second thing I put up. Setup and takedown is painful. I think you had the right idea because you mentioned before, like you kind of just have to leave this game up. And we even have a game room, so we have a way to leave it set up. But it was like the first evening we played, we had some friends coming over the next day, so we had to take it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit troublesome in that way.
So another thing, kind of similar to that, but within the game, the maintenance isn't too bad other than the monster maintenance. So all the enemies, wow, it's a little bit fiddly. Like they all have their own spot and they're all numbered and there's a section where you could put damage points on every single monster and then all the monsters have movement and there's different movement rules and every single monster has its own movement kind of. Yeah, it's really fiddly. It takes a few games to really figure out how to run it. And even once you figure it out, it's a bit annoying. So in general, I just wish they could have streamlined the monster process because it's a little bit annoying, I have to say.
Hey, what's your deal, dude? This was my first negative. And you're like, well, it's not that bad. It's fine. And now it's a negative for you?
That was your first negative? No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I was saying, well, I said there's so many things to remember. And specifically, I was talking about like monster movement and...
Well, for me, it's not about remembering, though, because the remembering comes with playing the game. But even if you remember everything perfectly, there's still a bunch of like physical maintenance kind of stuff you have to do with the monsters every single round, That's what
Okay.
I'm specifically
I guess
complaining about.
that was inferred by my first point. So there you go.
Well, how about you? What's the not
What?
deferred?
What do you want?
I'm trying to think
What
of
do
what
you
the
want
opposite
from
of
me?
inferred is. Like, be a little more explicit, Cody. Come on now.
Exfer, right?
No. What's your next point?
I just have one other point. Flipping a blank, and this is actually representative of a lot of the randomness that you may encounter in the game. That comes with the territory again, so it's a bit understandable. But that little combat deck where sometimes you have negative effects, like you have a base amount of damage you're going to do on your attack, but then you have to flip over something from your little battle deck, and you may get a negative modifier, or you may even just flip over a blank, which just negates your whole attack. And that sucks. If you, it's coming down to the wire, and you really need to hit this final monster. Nobody has any turns left. You play a really good card. You're going to knock him out of the park. You just shuffled your deck, and then you flip over a blank, and you lose the whole thing.
Yeah.
I feel like that just kept happening to Kirsten and I, specifically in Jaws the Lion, but I know the system is the same in Gloomhaven.
What I love that you can upgrade your modifier deck and make it better and take out bad cards, add in good cards, but I do agree that I don't like a mandatory negate card that completely undoes your action. I think if you have to mix one in because of a road card or something like that, every once in a while, if you have to mix one into your deck, I get it. But I think the one that's always there, every single scenario, you can't get rid of it, I really don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the Nat 1 of the deck, but I still don't
it's even
like
worse.
It. Yeah. There's another few ways the randomness kind of plays up, because each of the monsters, they don't have like ability cards they choose like you can. They just have a little deck for each type of monster where you flip it over, and then that tells you what they're kind of do for the round. And in one scenario we were playing, I flipped over it was a retaliate card. It's like for the next 6 times you get hit by a melee attack, like you do damage back. And we were trying to be really efficient, and so I was dealing with this one monster, so Kirsten could like start moving forward to the next room. And this monster is like a melee monster. Like that's their thing, but they have like 1 or 2 ranged attacks in their deck. And so all I needed to happen was for them just to hit me once, and I'd retaliate and take them out, and we'd be good. We can move on. And it was like 3 turns in a row. They just kept flipping ranged attacks, which means they never get close enough to you to activate the retaliate ability. So it's just things like that where...
Well, why didn't you just get closer to them, Cody?
I don't remember. There was stuff going on, dude. But it's more just the point of there's some ways that the randomness happens where thematically you're like, I should have dealt with this guy. Like this should be done, but you're just kind of confined a little bit by some of the nuances.
That's fair.
It doesn't happen all the time. It's just it can be pretty frustrating when it does happen.
Lastly, for me is I would have appreciated a little bit more variety in the different missions that you do. And I know you haven't played this a bunch, but the majority, I would say, of missions, the goal is just to kill all the enemies. And there are some other ones mixed in that do different things, but generally it's just like kill everybody. And that can kind of get a bit, not old, but it's kind of just like a little bit more variety would have been nice, And I'm guessing this is something Frosthaven or the second edition did better than this one. But this one, it feels like at least 75% of the missions are just kill everybody, And sure, that's most of the fun, is using all of your attack cards and your special abilities and the creatures you summon and all this stuff. That's the core of it. But yeah, just a little thing. So in summation, I absolutely love this game. I adore this game. It's my number 1 game of all time still. And I don't know when Brass is going to dethrone it, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen on my list. That's all I'm going to say. There are some negative, fiddly maintenance things, but ultimately that's far outweighed by just the experience you get from this game. It's incredible.
So when are you going to get Frosthaven?
I mean, I feel like Anna and I could really have fun. Like, I think she would enjoy this game. I think we could have fun going through that, but that's way down the road. That's not happening anytime soon.